Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Abundance Street podcast, where we celebrate non-traditional success stories with real people, real stories, and real journeys,
Real
right? Real
success.
success, yes,
Real
real
success.
people. We are
Yes.
definitely real people, and we celebrate real people really out here crushing it. So, how are you?
Doing well. Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I forgot to say I'm here with my co-host.
April Capri. Y'all don't know me by now. Tap
Right?
in.
That's
Yes.
it.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you think anything in our shows can help somebody, feel free to share.
Absolutely. So we have another bomb guest tonight. So who do we have?
We really do. We have a super impressive guest. We have a speaker, a coach, and an author of best-selling book, The Practice of Feeling Good. His passion for personal development began in sixth grade, but deepened after a major financial failure as an adult left him broke and on food stamps. This experience fueled his drive and led to a thriving new business. Now he is dedicated to helping others overcome financial struggles to overwhelm. I'm sorry. He's dedicated to helping others overcome financial struggles and overwhelm using science and psychology. He also hosts a weekly TV show, writes as a columnist, and performs as a professional magician. You guys, we have Mr. Fletcher Ellingson.
All right. A magician. That's awesome.
A magician. Whoa.
Show
Okay.
yourself, Fletcher. Hey, there
There
he
we
is. Hey,
go.
Hey, Fletcher.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. How are you?
I am excellent. Thanks. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Yep.
coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were excited. So we need to know about Fletcher. We need to know
Yes.
like your story, wherever you want to start. So
Wherever I want to start. Okay.
yeah.
Let's see. So let me just tell you who I am, right? I wear a lot of hats. So I'm an author, I'm a coach, I'm a father, I'm a friend, I'm a husband. But those are all roles that I play, right? We all play a lot of different roles, wear a lot of different hats. But who I am uh, is I'm a clearing for people to feel safe, heard, and empowered. And that's who I am at the core. And I used to like I'd go to like seminars and stuff. And you know how in seminars you have like a breakout room where you've got lunch and you're sitting at those round tables. And sometimes there's that awkward moment, or at least it was awkward for me, where somebody says like, "So Fletcher, who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh no, don't ask me that. I don't know who I am." Right. And a lot of people think, well, I got to go find out who I am. I got to go discover who I am. And I had years of doing that too, until I finally realized one day that I get to declare who I am. I
Mhm.
get to declare who I am in this world. And so I declared that who I am is a clearing for people to feel safe, heard, and empowered. And because there's a lot of suffering in the world. And my vision for the world is a world that exists where people are suffering less, and they are experiencing more kindness, greater curiosity, joy, and connection. And so, if you had known me many, many years ago, oh boy, I was a nice guy, and you thought, oh yeah, yeah, Fletcher's nice, and but I didn't know who I was. I've always been an entrepreneur and have had multiple businesses, and some have crashed and burned in a ball of fire, and others have been wildly successful. But it was during my years as an entrepreneur that I began getting in front of lots and lots of people, like thousands of people all over the country on a regular basis. And I began noticing patterns. I think that one of our superpowers as a human species is pattern recognition. Because of our ability to recognize patterns, we're able to manipulate the elements and create pretty much anything we want to. No other species has that ability. But I began noticing patterns in people, and they began coming to me and talking with me about issues they were having in their business and certain products. But what I realized quickly, what it wasn't that they were having business in their business, they were having business in their thinking. And I began to identify these patterns over and over and over. And so pretty soon, at the same time, I was diving deep into personal development. And I realized that, gosh, you know what? I'm giving my kind of counsel or advice over and over and over. What if I began to document this, put it into a methodology so that I could really effectively help people? And that's what the practice of feeling good was born out of. And so fast forward today, the practice of feeling good in business and in life, it's about helping people create a life that feels good by radically changing their thinking.
Wow, that's
Ooh.
awesome. So starting off the bat, when you said that you help people feel safe, heard, and empowered, I felt those things when you said it. So I think that's so awesome because so many people, that's a big need for people because they're struggling with anxiety. And like you said, you didn't really know who you were at first. And so I know I struggled with limiting beliefs as well. And so it's kind of hard when you're playing and you're like going battling your own mind and thoughts, but to know that you're there for someone in that capacity is so powerful. That's
Yes.
awesome. So,
Definitely.
Yeah.
yes.
And I encourage people like to, if you have been struggling with like, gosh, who am I? Or, I just want to remind you, we get the opportunity. We have the opportunity to declare who we are and then live into it. And a lot of people say, well, gosh, Fletcher, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know what I want to be or who I want to be, but if I just declared it, I'd kind of feel like an imposter. Um, but I encourage you to declare who you are. There's such power in declaring. And then you begin to live into it because once you declare it, you begin to inform your brain of this identity. And you activate this thing in your brain called the reticular activation system, which is basically a filter in our brain, and it begins to filter it lets in all the information that is in alignment with what you believe, and it holds at bay that which you don't. So when maybe you've said, gosh, I'm thinking about getting a new car, and you think like, oh, maybe a blue Prius, and all of a sudden you start seeing blue Priuses on the road, right?
Okay.
That's because of your RAS, the reticular activation system. It's now noticing the thing that you want it to notice. So when you declare who you are, your RAS begins to look for supporting evidence for that. And so that really helps with if you struggle with imposter syndrome, that's going to help you with it.
Wow. How long did it take you to kind of like, because you were talking about not necessarily habits, but patterns, which I think that, kind of are the fuel for patterns. I mean, for habits, you know what I mean? They're interchangeable
Yeah.
sometimes. How long did it take you for you kind of got into a rhythm of feeling better and then deciding that you wanted to help others feel better?
Yeah. So some habits are easier to change than others. Uh, it depends on what you're dealing with. But I'll give you an example. So another one of the roles I play in my life is I've been a professional magician for about 35 years. I just love magic. It's fun. It's like pretend play for adults, right? Um, and so I'm always dealing with my hands and cards. And somebody had taken a picture of a close up of my hands and some cards while I was performing one time, and they showed it to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, my nails, because I'd been a lifelong nail biter. And I was just like, oh, that looks so terrible, right? They're all these raggedy edged nails and way back on the bed. And I was like, oh man. And I had tried to quit biting my nails so many times over the years. But then I began to apply some of the very stuff that I teach my clients. And I was coming back from a nearby city. It was a 45-minute trip, and I wasn't driving. My wife was driving, and I decided to employ one of these techniques. And it was a visualization, and it's called a swish pattern. And it's a really cool visualization technique that allows you to interrupt an old disempowering pattern and set up a new compelling vision into which to live. So lifelong nail biter, but once I began doing that visualization, 45 minutes later, I was done. It was like, I transformed that habit. And so my self-talk, my visualization, everything around biting my nails changed radically. And that was it. So that's an example of something that, and a lifelong habit that was blown up in 45 minutes. Now, other ones that I have, I'm still dealing with. Okay. So I have other things I'm dealing with, but it's a process. But the biggest thing is I don't get stuck in those habits as long. The behavior isn't as intense, and the duration isn't as intense or as long. And so I don't think we can avoid going into suffering. We go into suffering, in and out of suffering all day long, right? Someone pulls out in front of you, suddenly you're like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" You know, you're throw up your arms, and now you're in suffering. But we don't have to stay there. We don't have to stay in that suffering. So the practice of feeling good is really learning about how to identify that which serves us and feels good, and to let go of the rest of it, which doesn't feel good. And when I say feeling good, I know I'm talking a lot, but let me
Oh
just
no,
give
you're
this one
good.
more thing. When I say feeling good, what I mean is I don't necessarily just mean happy. When I say feeling good, it's an umbrella term, and underneath that umbrella is are things like feeling connected, feeling open, feeling willing, feeling secure, feeling safe, feeling enthusiastic or eager, right? Or courageous, or inclusive, or accepting, right? So there's so many ways of feeling good, but would you agree that there's a lot of people that are really practiced at not feeling good, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm raising my hand, right? I mean, I like
It's
I am,
unanimous now.
yeah, exactly, right. I am masterfully practiced at not feeling good in areas of my life. So, and because we've been practicing that all of our life. We just didn't know that we were practicing it. So now the opportunity is now that it's in my realm of awareness. Now I can begin putting intention to feeling good. And when I say good, all those things, because when you feel good, you know, the thing that you have access to when you're feeling good is progress. And that's what everybody wants, don't they? I mean, we want progress in our health, our wealth, our finances, our relationships. We want progress in all of the areas of our life. And progress is available to us, but it's massively available to us when we're operating from a place that feels good. When we're operating from a place of suffering, a mental suffering mindset, where access to progress is very hampered. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes. So what I earlier you were mentioning that I guess you're saying you do these things with intention. You mentioned declaring what you want. How is that different from like affirmations, or is that the same? Like declaring, is that more like you're more intentional, more intense with it? How does
Yeah,
that look as far as that, and how as opposed to like affirmations, daily
yeah.
affirmations, is that the same or different? Or
So that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it. So
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of affirmation. So like before I get on every podcast, there's a very specific affirmation that I do, and I was doing it right before I got on with you, you two as well. But so an affirmation is wonderful because it's bringing you back to the present moment. Um, it's a little different for me in my book. It's different than a declaration, because in a declaration is like a decision that I've made. I've decided that who I am is a clearing for people to feel safe, heard, and empowered. It's like this powerful decision. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like I made a clear decision, right? So when we make a decision to, I'm deciding to increase my wealth, or I'm deciding to increase my visibility. I'm deciding to write this book, right? It's not like this book has been floating around my mind for a while, and I was like, but I'm not an author, right? I'm not a writer. So those were other those were other decisions I'd made. I'm not an author, and I'm not good at writing. Those were powerful decisions that I had made, and they did not serve me. And so but I kept on coming back to this idea of writing this book. And so at some point I had to declare, I'm an author. At some point I had to declare, I can articulate this methodology for the masses. I declared that, and not only declared that I'm going to be an author, I'm going to be a best-selling author. And as a result of that, my book became a best-selling book on Amazon, right? Which is super
Right.
cool, right?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
But when we decide something, it's so much more powerful than wanting something, hoping for something, right?
Mm. Yeah.
That is
Waiting
so
for
true.
something.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like you put your foot down, like I'm
Yes.
this, like for
Exactly.
real.
You just change
Yeah.
the energy like completely with
Yes.
each different thing that you said, but I've never actually looked at it different, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In
Yeah.
most times. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, so you can declare, you can decide and declare who you are. And then the affirmations are that constant kind of like it's a reminder of who you are, or whatever your affirmation is. It's a reminder in that sector of your world, and it's kind of like you're adding fuel, clean burning fuel to it.
Right.
So got
So
you. So the declaration is like the final, like you said, Jen, it's like putting your foot down, and
yeah.
the affirmations is like, just adding fuel to the fire, like, okay, let's keep this going.
Yeah, like it. Yeah,
Okay.
it keeps me in momentum. So momentum, we experience momentum when our thinking is in alignment with our desired outcomes. Okay, so have you ever been like in the zone where you're just like, you're taking care of business, you're getting things done, and things are clicking, and you're just like, man, I don't know what's happening today, but like I am in the zone, right?
Yes.
You're like
Yes.
creating momentum. Well, the reason that happens, and you can create this on demand, the reason it happens though is because you'll notice in those moments, the thinking that's taking place in your brain is in alignment with your desired outcome.
Mm.
And when that happens, you experience momentum. Now notice the opposite. When your thinking is not in alignment, you want this outcome, but your thinking is like, well, that's not for me. I can't do that. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too whatever, right? That's not for me. That's only for those people. See, your thinking's not in alignment with the outcome that you want. And so now what you're experiencing is not momentum. What you're experiencing is resistance.
Mm.
And that doesn't feel good. So how do you move from resistance to momentum? You change the thoughts that you're focusing on. And like you were saying about the affirmations are so powerful because again, they have the potential to move you from out of alignment into alignment. You're
Mm.
reminding yourself, oh yeah, I do have what it takes. Oh yeah, good things are lined up, stacked up, and showing up daily, right?
Right. Yeah. So
Okay.
excuse me. So where does burnout come in? So because sometimes I struggle with, like, I call it the lazy bug. Like, sometimes I don't know if it's my body telling me you need to rest for a minute and slow down. But sometimes I get in a little funky area where it's hard to come out of that. Is that burnout? Is that me? I don't know what that is. Like, is that a case where I need to put my foot down and say I'm gonna get up and do this, or keep going?
Yeah.
Because this sometimes, how does that play in when someone's burned out or?
Oh, this is such a good question. And I encourage anybody who's listening to really pause here. You just asked such a good question because sometimes you feel like you wake up and you're like, I'm in a funk. And, you go out into the world and, maybe people who know you well, they're like, hey, April, what's going on? You seem like you're in a funk today. You're like, yeah, I don't know. I just woke up this way. It'll pass. It's like we've come to believe that our emotions just descend down upon us and that we have nothing to do with them or that we can't do anything about them. But, we'll say like, oh, I'm just in a funk. It'll pass it'll probably pass in a couple hours. And then a couple hours do pass and somebody says, hey, you feeling better? Yeah, actually, I'm feeling better. I don't know what was going on. I was just in a funk. It's like our emotions descend and ascend without our permission, consent, or approval. But that isn't actually what's going on. So I want to answer your question because your question was so good. It's like, why does this happen? Why am I feeling this sometimes? I'm going to give you an example. Imagine you go to the theater, the movie theater. Okay, and you go in there and you grab your popcorn and a drink, and you're all set. You're ready to watch the movie. You know, the lights go down, and the movie comes up. And let's pretend it's like an action-packed thriller, okay? And right off the back, there's like an intense action sequence, like a car chase and people running, and lots of shouting and intense music, right? Like right now, you're not eating your popcorn. You're like, your eyes are big as saucers. They're glued to the screen, and you're breathing really shallowly. And if somebody could actually hook you up to a heart rate monitor, you'd see that your heart rate is actually increasing. Okay. And then 5-7 minutes later, the action subsides, and you take a deep breath. Now you're eating your popcorn, and then pretty soon there's like something really funny that's happening, and now you're laughing your butt off, right? You look over to your friend, you guys are both crying, it's so funny, right? Then 10-15 minutes later, there's a really sad part maybe, and now you're all choked up. You're like, your tears are welling up with your eyes are welling up with tears, right? You're feeling the emotion of that. And then a little bit later, something happens and you jump out of your seat, like something spooks you, right? It's like frightens you, takes you by surprise, and your heart's racing again. And this goes on for 2 hours in this movie. And at the end of that movie, you have had a roller coaster of emotions just occur. Now, here's the wild thing. In fact, you may have experienced a broader scope of emotions in that 2 hours than you do all week. But notice what was happening. You're having an emotional reaction based on light and sound that are being broadcast on a screen in front of you. None of it is real. All right, it's totally fictitious. But the brain cannot tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. The one thing the brain must do, however, is it must create an emotional response based on what the brain is focused on. Okay? Now, that was a long way to get to this, but it's so important. Your brain has no choice. It must create an emotional response based on where you have placed your attention. So whatever you're thinking, the brain doesn't judge it. It's not there to judge you. It's just like, oh, we're thinking that. Oh, well, I have to quickly create an emotional reaction that is in alignment with these thoughts. So our thinking is, okay, and you guys just feel free to interrupt me, okay? But this is like part of like the crux of my whole book, is because we want to learn how to feel good on demand.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Don't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got an operating system here in our heads, just like I'm holding up my iPhone right here, because my iPhone has an operating system. It's what runs my phone. And in fact, that operating system, it gets updated pretty regularly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Our smartphones will get a notification that says, hey, plug in your phone. There's going to be an operating system update. And why do we update our phones? So they run faster, so they can run more complex programs, right? So that they're up to date. So that they serve us really well. But let me ask you a question. When's the last time that we sat down and said, I got to upgrade the operating system between my ears, right? I need to upgrade this thing, the neural pathways in my brain. Because see, we have all these apps on our phone, and we've got all these apps in our brain. Some of them serve us really well, and others, they don't serve us very well.
It's true.
Right?
Yes.
Taking up space.
Yeah.
Taking up space, right? So, but the thing about the apps on our phone, we can just touch them, hold them down, and delete. You can't do that with your brain. Those applications, those limiting beliefs that are in there, they're going to remain in there for the most part. Most of them are hardwired. They're going to remain in there. So if we don't create with intention another program for your brain to use, it can only use the existing program. So for me, for years, I was a hard worker, loved working. I loved starting businesses, but I had a limiting belief that I could only take it so far. Okay. That it couldn't be wildly successful because that only happened for other people. I lacked something, whatever it was. I had a limiting belief. And guess what? And so guess what I usually experience in my businesses, right?
Whatever you said it was, right? The limiting
Whatever I
belief.
said it was. Yep.
Yes.
Right. I put a cap on myself. I put a lid on there. And so I had to intentionally create a new belief system about what was possible. Because if I didn't, the only program that my brain could run was that same one that I've been living into year after year after year. So I had to create a new program. And that's what, so the book, The Practice of Feeling Good, is called How to Upgrade Your Thinking and Live a Feel Good Life. It's the practice of literally creating new neural pathways in the brain, and practicing them over and over so they become an actual program that runs in your brain. Now your brain has two programs it can run. I mean, or it has a choice is what I mean. It can run the old one that hasn't served me very well, or it can begin to run this new one. Now that it'll take more effort to run this new one, but if we do it and we add in those affirmations like you were talking about, then ultimately it becomes a default program. It becomes the program that gets run.
Wow. That was so
Wow.
well said and explained. That was so powerful. I like how
That
you,
is extremely
yes,
powerful.
how you use the analogy of the movie and then the phone like that. I never really heard it like that. So that was very, very powerful and interesting. I hope our listeners were paying attention. So, because I really needed that to hear that for myself. Because I
Yeah.
find myself in those funky moods sometimes where it could take a couple of days before I'm able to kind of get myself up,
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
and I totally relate to that. And the last thing I want to just add to this is that those emotions, the reason why emotions are so intense is because it's a chemical reaction in the brain, and then it goes right through our nervous system, and we feel it everywhere, right? We feel our emotions because they're a chemical reaction, and that chemical reaction starts based on where you are putting your attention. So the practice of feeling good is like really noticing, hey, where's life working out? Like, where can I begin to focus more on the feel good things? We talk about gratitude all the time, right? I mean, it's like a buzzword, and it's, I love gratitude, but I really mean like get grateful, like really dig deep. I mean, you guys this is the abundance tree podcast, right? So like focus on abundance because it is out there everywhere. We just have to begin to practice noticing it, right? So like
absolutely.
when my wife and I go down to, we go down to a nearby city, it's about a 45-minute drive. Frequently, one of our practices is like, let's just say like, hey, let's do a round of gratitudes, right? So we just go back and forth with gratitudes, 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 gratitudes. And again, because what you focus on, you feel, right? In the most literal sense. So we just make that a practice. And by the time we get down to where we've been chatting for a few minutes and talking about what we're grateful for, we both feel really energized, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
so
but we,
great because I could see like as you were saying that and you started out with that explanation, I could like think back in my head, okay, I know the thoughts that I had that put me in the funk. And it does start with the thought. It really does. And
yes,
it could snowball, and
yes,
even if it's someone around you that gives you the thought or something happened or something, but it does start with that thought. And if it's negative, it can snowball into the funk. Or if you practice the gratitude, the putting your foot down and declaring and
yes,
practice that, it's going to be snowballing the other direction, the positive direction. So,
yes, you
And
got
then
it.
to add to that, that snowball, like you were saying, with the neural pathways, it goes down the same path. And you notice that pattern and that funk, it's like a repetition of funk, the
Yes,
same funk and the same negative feelings. How
exactly.
can we talk about how to recreate those neural pathways to redirect and create happier feelings or just new habits and new ways of thinking so that
Yeah.
our actions will follow? Because we know it starts with the mind.
Yeah, exactly. Everything starts with the mind, right? Everything starts with our thinking. Now, here's what something else I'm going to answer that question. But first, we got to let your listeners know, like, those disempowering thoughts, those thoughts that don't feel good and they put us in a funk. Like,
Yes.
did you sit down in the morning with your cup of coffee or tea and say, okay, what can I think of that will put me in a funk?
no.
Right.
No. See,
Oh, yeah.
these thoughts just show up without your
Mhm.
permission, without your consent, and without your approval. I'm going to say that
Mm.
again. Most of our thinking is automatic. It is happening without your permission, consent, or approval.
True.
So, April, to answer your question, how do we begin to do this? By becoming present. More and more by becoming present and literally creating a structure. Like I'm pointing to my my journal here, right? If people looked into my journal, they would see, you know, there's a regular pattern of writing down what I'm grateful for, noticing what works, right? Now, some people can do this in a prayer form. Some people can do this in a written form. Whatever the form is, we have to bring that next level of intention to it. And then, so you want to ultimately, we're looking at rearranging the circuitry in our brain, like you said, April. Or like, how do we get these neural pathways to, you know, like, set them up and like take hold, right? It's repetition, 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 and get your body into it. Like when I'm out, like biking or walking or swimming, I'm frequently saying affirmations to myself. Okay. Why? Because the more you get your body into it when you're moving, I mean, think about when you've been really irate in your life and you're like you're having this verbal tirade. You're just like, and you're, you know, you're shaking your fists and you're moving your arms. Do you feel less or even greater agitation when you get your body into it?
Mhm.
Right?
Yes.
Greater, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the same principle. Get grateful, move your body at the same
Mhm.
time, right?
Mhm.
So like, well, and I
So
have
good.
affirmations for everything. So like, for instance, for my marriage, we defined who we were because both my wife and I had been through a previous marriage, and they ended up in divorce, right? I didn't, at that time in my life, I simply didn't have the tools to keep my marriage together. I tried my hardest, but I was lacking certain tools, obviously, because I got divorced. And we, you know, when my wife and I got together, we were like, man, we do never want to go through that again. I don't wish that on anybody. It's devastating. So one of the things we asked each other, like, what can we do to ensure that? Oh, how about if we define who we are in this marriage? So one of our incantations is who we are is wide open communication, stronger than steel support, and a living illustration of joy, connection, and contribution. That's who we are. So we know who we are, right? I mean, I don't have to think about that. That is literally hardwired in my brain because I've said it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and I've get my body into it, right? So make up affirmations and visualizations for everyone. So we have one around abundance, and um, they're so powerful, right?
Yeah.
So you direct your thinking. You create a habit of directing your thinking that is in alignment with your desired outcomes.
Oh, that's so
Mm.
good. That's so good. I tell you, that's so powerful. And you have to do this probably in every area in your life. You got to make a decision.
Oh
So
my
which way
gosh.
you gonna go? Which way you gonna go? You know. So
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I did it in my health. Oh my gosh, I had a lot of friends who used to do triathlons, and they would invite me. For years, they invited me to train with them, and I was like, "Oh, you guys, you totally don't understand. I don't have the ability. Like,
Mm.
I don't have it within me." I honestly believed it, and I was declaring that I do not have that within me. And finally, fortunately, they didn't give up on me because secretly, I was so envious. I wanted that so badly. I wanted to be able to do what they were doing. I wanted to go out and swim, bike, and run like in a triathlon. But I believe that that wasn't possible for me, which was silly because there was nothing wrong with my body. I just didn't have the skill sets. I'd never been around that type of living. So when I set out to do it, and they helped train with me for a year before I did my first event. And after I crossed that finish line, I had a new belief system. I had so much evidence that I could do this that I could never go back to my old disempowering thinking that I don't have what it takes.
so
Right?
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This can be
Awesome.
helpful for so many people, especially people that suffer with like depression and anxiety, survival mode, which is one that's been coming up a lot lately.
Yes.
Where can people find you to get more help and insight and information?
Yeah. So visit me online at fletcherellingson.com or just go to thepracticeoffeelinggood.com. And they both lead to the same place. Or you can find me on Facebook. Just look up Fletcher Ellingson. And at the website, I got all sorts of free resources. You can take the happiness quiz. You can get a old copy of my an ebook that I did a long time ago. And also go to Amazon.com and pick up your copy of The Practice of Feeling Good. And where it's a practical guide. It's got exercises in there, and it's a quick read, easy read, but it prompts you to get into action through these particular methodologies that are laid out in the book.
Wow, that's so awesome. Do you do like one-on-one coaching too, or
Yep. Yeah, I
do
do one-on-one coaching. Yeah, that's mainly what I do. That and
okay.
speaking. And when I should say about the book, like I told you guys, if you want to get a free copy of my book, I'm going to give out one free copy to one of your listeners. All you have to do is email me at fletcherellingson.com. Just reference the abundance tree, and I will send you your copy. Just send me a mailing address, obviously. Okay. I'm going to send each of you a copy of my book too. So just email me your guys' mailing address after
Oh man,
Oh,
you get
thank you
offline
this
so
too.
is
much.
amazing. I'm about to
Yes.
practice feeling good today. I love
I love
Thank
it.
you,
Thank
Fletcher.
you.
You
Thank you
bet. You
so
bet.
much. And
My pleasure.
That's so awesome.
listeners,
Good.
who will it be? Who will it be? Better jump on this opportunity.
Oh, I just love
That's
it
so
because I
good.
mean, my biggest takeaway during this whole thing is that you are what you decide you can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think that we wait for something outside to tell us what we can or give us permission, and we just never really like take ownership. What would you like? What are your words for somebody that it just does not feel empowered in their own skin, in their own just
Mm.
within themselves, and they feel like they're just waiting for something or somebody, but they want something? What would you tell that person to give them hope?
Oh, man. You know what, April, you hit on something. I'll make this quick. But you said when people want to feel empowered.
Yeah.
The only time that you can feel empowered in any area of your life is when you are taking responsibility for the commitments you have made.
Mm.
That's the only time. You cannot feel empowered if you are not taking responsibility for your commitments. Think about it, and I'm watching the time here. I'll be quick. When you take responsibility for commitments that you've made in your life, you feel like, yeah, I feel good. You feel empowered. When you feel disempowered in your life, notice something. Notice that you have stopped taking responsibility for the commitment you made, or you never made a commitment in the first place, so you can't take responsibility for it. So there's this sense of disempowerment.
Wow.
So my answer in a nutshell, make a commitment for which you can take responsibility, and make it a small one. I'm a big believer in small baby step commitments, so you can practice taking responsibility and practice getting those desired outcomes that you want.
Awesome.
That's
Drop
a
the
mic
mic,
drop.
y'all. That was a
Drop
gem.
the mic. Thank you, Fletcher.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Fletcher.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Best wishes to you, both of you. And thank you so much for being a source of kindness and contribution in our world.
Absolutely.
Aw.
You as well. And thank you for this amazing book that is a gift.
You
Thank you
bet.
guys for watching.
Thank you. Y'all have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.